And we're back for another Javier Mendez podcast straight out of Dubai. How are things going today, Jav? How's your, looks like you've been busy out socializing. You just get in for the evening?
Yeah. I've been out hanging with friends, and they took me into a smoky cigar meeting where the new thing is for a lot of rich people is to meet at cigar places and they discuss business and whatnot. I don't think I want to get used to that one.
Hey, I quit smoking. I used to smoke. You're like, oh, it's just like hanging out with you, Len, walking over to the restaurant. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I don't mind the smoke so much because it's not bad, but I'm sure it's not that healthy for you, especially
Yeah.
smoke.
That's the funny part. That's how I quit smoking, was by having a cigar, maybe not want to smoke anymore. Like have a cigar and you don't crave cigarettes, and then eventually you don't want the cigar, and then it's been over a year. But
Yeah.
it works. So the big news, the breaking news is that the PFL finally concluded the deal with Bellator. They're talking about having a champ versus champ in 2024. And you said something to me earlier, like, do we even know who their champs are? But they're revolving. They're not like a permanent, like a longer lasting branded champ per se.
Yeah,
right?
they're not revolving, they're not lasting, and they're not known that worldwide. Their champs aren't known worldwide. I can't tell you who the champ is. Only thing I know is Kayla Harrison, honestly, and that's sad. And of course, the two great acquisitions they had in Francis Ngannou and Jake Paul. I
Right.
mean, those are stellar, acquisitions. When they got him, I told you that. I go, those are great moves. And Ngannou doing what he did just put the big giant stamp on whatever Ngannou does is going to be big, huge news now. So that's a huge credit to PFL, and now they're going to get a huge credit here too, because now what they're doing is they're going to own a vast majority of the best fighters in the world now, because Bellator was on a big rise. They had quite a few of their champions that can actually cross over and be champions in the UFC, and I know it. I know that they could have, and it's just a matter of putting them
Evelyn.
together is the only way to find out, right? Well, we won't never know that, but now we will know how good Bellator fighters are because they'll fight the PFL guys, and my guess is the vast majority of the PFL guys were going to lose to the Bellator guys. That's my prediction. The vast majority of them are going to lose. And the heavyweight division, of course, if Ngannou's the heavyweight, no, he's going to win. But I don't really know too many other divisions. The women's division, Kayla, I don't know if Bellator has anybody that big, right? I mean, it's pretty big. So, but it's a great move for PFL. It's a sad move for a lot of fighters that are going to lose their jobs because, from what I hear, they're only going to do 8 shows for Bellator. So they're cutting down drastically. So they're going to have to cut fighters.
Wow. So they're not taking everybody. They're not absorbing the whole talent pool. They're not taking the whole payroll.
No. So you got to assume people that have lost, they're not super valuable, their job's in jeopardy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the sad part. There's going to be a lot of fighters that probably need the job, and they're going to be cut. That's just, I mean, that's the bad part. That's the good part is, they're doing crossover champion versus champion. But the bad part is a lot of good fighters are going to lose their jobs.
Well, I got to tell you, the other night I was just perusing through YouTube, and there was about 8 different fight promotions streaming live to YouTube for free. Like, I don't know, something like Brave was on there, and then there was like a bunch of other like South American, European, Eastern Bloc countries. I was like,
yeah,
who were all these? Like, it was like, man, you're all going the same day as the UFC had their fight over at the Apex, which was, not the biggest thing, but it's like, I'm not really going to get into that. You and I have been usually talking when there's a good pay-per-view, something with some build-up, because otherwise, it's not really always our same objective is to make the Javier Mendez podcast as news reporters, right? But to talk about MMA in general.
We talk about MMA in general, and it's not has to be like the headlines that everybody else talks about. Although those are the ones that people mostly tune in to listen to, so they really want to hear about the big events also. So, but we don't want to necessarily go after the hot topics either all the time. We want to be a little different, and It's because we can. We don't get paid for this. So.
If we do, it's just enough to buy a sandwich, and we enjoy the hell out of. We enjoy that sandwich too.
So we're not paying this as a living. We're not being paid to do this as a living. So that's the good part.
That's true. So have you met any more MMA talent or seen any developments happening in Dubai? Any organizations that are up and coming over there?
No, the UAE Warriors, like I mentioned before, they're like top notch. They are top notch with the CEO Fad Darwish and then the Abdulmanan, which is the owner, of Palm Sports. I mean, they throw a first class promotion. Their promotion is just as good as any lower level UFC show I've ever seen. No different, talent wise and everything. I'm including everything. I mean, look, they had Amaru on there, our guy, in the last show, and I was blown away by the talent they had there. So, and then Brave's another show too that I guess has got some fairly decent talent too. So a lot of these lower level shows are doing really well. Not necessarily in the U.S., as well, because the U.S. has been known to do good shows, but now there's other countries are doing good shows. Brave, Warriors over here in UAE, and then you got
one.
Like what's that one in Poland? The big one.
KSW.
KSW. They're unbelievable. The KSW fighters don't necessarily want to go anywhere else because they make too much money what they're making now, and going to the UFC would be like a pay cut for them. That's how good they are, and that's very good. And that's what we need is other organizations that can give you a good living doing the sport they love. So it's good. It's a good thing, but that's why the PFL, taking over Bellator and diminishing, how many shows they do, and then how long are they going to keep Bellator? That's another question. If they took it down to 8 shows, what about after the contract's over? The contract with the network's over. What are they going to do then? Are they going to keep Bellator? I seriously doubt it.
That's a weird mix. Like you've got
weird mix.
It's a weird mix. It's the way the two businesses are run. Like Bellator actually builds stars, where the other one, it's round robin. It's like an eternal, whatchamacallit, it's a tournament. It's a full-on tournament all the time, every time.
It's hard to build stars to tournaments like that because there's no consistency. The champ could change every year. Yeah,
it's really hard. So what do you think? What do you think it's going to look like? Any idea what that fighting structure might look like? I mean, we're only guessing at this point, I guess.
Yeah, we're guessing. I think the champ versus champ thing is going to be very interesting. I'm very interested in that. For the first time, I can say I want to see the PFL. Yeah, the champ versus champ. I want to see, and I'm predicting that most of the Bellator champs are going to become victorious over the PFL champs. So, but that's just my opinion, right? When they fight, we'll find out if I'm right, but I like that. I just don't like the tournament thing. I'm just sorry. It's not my thing. I like tournaments, but I don't like, every year there's a new tournament champion and that's the champion. It's like, well,
right.
I don't know. I like the way the UFC does it. I like the way Bellator did it. If they're going to do a tournament, they keep their champion and they do one division per year, and then like they're doing the lightweight division now. That's the way I like it. It's not bad, but just all the divisions, I don't like that.
How do you think this is a threat to the UFC, or does it even make a difference? Because these are two awkward mixes. It's like peanut butter hot dog sandwich. It's like
I think this is a little bit more in the right direction to give more eyeballs to PFL for sure.
Sure, mass.
Yeah, it's like you can't tell me that Francis Ngannou doing what he didn't bring more eyeballs when he fights for PFL. It sure as hell did. So they're making right moves. They really are. Buying Bellator, is a great move too in their direction. I just don't think it's good in all the fighters' directions. That's all. But for PFL, it's a good move. Now it's just a matter of what they're going to do with the talent that they're going to get.
Totally agree. So I get some AI questions for you. I know you're like, what is AI questions? I just asked the chat bot, give me some questions for Javier, and then we'll see if I'm trying to pick something that's new. So
see how smart the AI is.
Yeah, let's see how good it is. This is going to interview you. So the first question the AI's got to say is, can you tell us about your early life and what led you to martial arts?
early life. Well, I was basically like a migrant individual that came over to the good old US of A when I was 6 years old. I basically grew up like everybody else that came from the good old Mexico over here by, uh, poverty means, So I was a poor kid that didn't have anything. That had parents that my father was a factory forklift driver. My mother didn't work, So living was very rough. We were on food stamps, welfare, the whole bit, and so growing up as a kid here, I had a happy childhood, but I didn't have one of the childhoods that a lot of people would want to have, where you have a parent that's, interested in how well you do in school, a parent that wants to know, what do you want to be when you grow up? Those kind of things. When I I didn't have any of that. So my parents never asked me what I wanted to do. My parents never told me, are you going to go to school? You better go to school. And my parents never asked me how my grades were, none of that. So I didn't get any of that type of education from my parents, So for me, it was like a rough growing up, in that regard, to prepare me for, to be in the business world or just to survive in this world. It was that of a migrant worker that, his kids are going to be similar in that regards. They're going to take labor jobs, and not really succeed in life because what options did you have? You had no direction from your parents, and the parents are big key factors in how you developed as a adult yourself. And I didn't have that. I didn't have the guidance from my parents because they didn't have it themselves.
So did that what opened the door? Like, you saw martial arts as a way out or a way of defending yourself? What was the attraction to it?
Martial arts was not any of those. It was basically I was at a nightclub that when I was like 18 years of age, 19, 18, and it was I got a fake ID for my brother. I used his ID, and I went to DMV, and I got an ID that says I was 21 when I was like, I think I was 19 or maybe 20, no, 19 or 18. And basically, what happened is I got into the bars, and I almost got in a fight with a drug dealer guy. And I didn't know what I didn't know is that I didn't know how to fight. So that kind of scared me into going, wow, I almost got a fight with a guy and I didn't know how to fight. I better learn how to fight. So that's how martial arts came into the pictures through almost being in trouble. And I didn't care about getting a black belt or being a black belt. I just wanted to be able to defend myself. That was it.
Wow. That's interesting. So at 19, that's when you started. When were you boxing? Was that early or was that into the?
I boxed when I was 12, but I didn't look at that as self-defense. I just looked at it as boxing is just a recreational type thing. I didn't realize, I didn't box for long either. I only had 2 amateur matches, so it wasn't like boxing was something that I had confidence in. I had no confidence in my boxing, but I could probably fight and I didn't know it. Because boxing is a great form of self-defense, for you. When you're talking about just using your hands, I don't think there's anybody that can beat a boxer, in my opinion. Just hands, a professional type like boxer. If you're going to try to beat a professional boxer with your hands only, I don't think many people are going to be successful.
I agree. I totally agree. How did your admiration for Bruce Lee influence your career?
My admiration for Bruce Lee didn't influence not too much, but my love for martial art movies was big because of him, but as far as my career, no, because I never looked at Bruce Lee as a fighter. I looked at him as a movie star that was a great martial artist, but I didn't look at him as a fighter, so as a fighter, he was not an influence for me in fighting because he wasn't a fighter. To me, he was a street fighter, but not a ring fighter.
Yeah, you get exposed to the professional thing. So you saw him clearly as a movie star where people that weren't training like you probably mixed fact with fiction a little bit. You know what I mean? You could see how they could take it in that way because you get mesmerized by watching it, kind of, right?
He was somebody that I looked at as a martial artist and an actor, a great actor. He was the greatest in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie star, like martial arts, he was the greatest. And but I didn't look at him as a ring fighter, so I didn't I try to emulate him as like because he didn't do it. He didn't fight in the ring. you know. So he was definitely not somebody that influenced me in that area. No.
I could see that. This is AI is doing pretty good. What were some of the challenges you faced when you started your kickboxing career?
Biggest challenge was underconfidence. I had no confidence in myself. Everybody would tell me that I was going to be a world champion. I had so much talent, blah, blah, blah. I never believed any of those guys. I thought they were full of baloney. And, you know, I never believed anything until I lost my first bout. Then that's when I realized that I did have what those guys were saying. And if I just applied myself and trained properly and do what the sport recommends you do, you know, don't just box. If you can do a kickboxing match, get in there and do your kickboxing, you know, because with the fight I lost was all the training was done at a boxing gym. And I was, you know, just sparring with professional boxers, thinking that's all I needed, because all the kickboxers before that I beat up with boxing. So I thought, no problem, right? So yeah, there's a problem, all right. And you don't kick, even though you're in shape. You may be in boxing shape, but you're not in kicking shape. And yet my type of rules where you have to have a minimum kicks per round. And man, it got me tired just kicking. And then being kicked at too was the range was different, you know. So it was a tough experience, but it also taught me that I could be a world champion, and it taught me that what everybody was saying about me was true. I just needed to apply myself in the right area, and I did. That's when everything changed, and that's when my confidence came that I was going to be a champion. But it wasn't until I lost. So it's what they said, you know, if you lose and you benefit from it, you know, then it's a good thing. Well, I benefited from that loss.
I have a question now. I remember we talked with Scott Coker, and he had you do like a demo with or like just basically try out Superfoot Wallace, who was like champion back then. Was that before you became champ? Was that like when you were rookie?
That's before I even fought kickboxing. No, I did that exhibition with Bill Superfoot Wallace, and you know, it's because I used to be a woulda, coulda, shoulda guy. I used to tell everybody I could be this, I could beat that guy, I could do that. I was one of those kind of guys, you know. And a friend of mine, Juan Alexander, told me one day, "Shut up! You don't want to hear me talk no more. But until you prove it that you can do something, I don't want to hear you talk." So that's how it was. We're echoing here.
We're echoing?
Yeah.
Hang on a second. I'm good. Say something.
Hello.
I'm good.
Okay, my end, I can hear me. I still hear myself. Comes back.
Can you log in, log out real quick? That'll probably get rid of it. That's the only thing we got. Okay, so I know we were on one there, and we get the echo thing happening. But what happened? The AI was asking, what was it like to win your first cruiserweight title, ISK? How did that feel? You know, what was that moment like for you?
Oh, yeah. Winning the cruiserweight title was an unbelievable experience for me, because I finally accomplished something that I spent so many years, you know, trying to achieve. You know, it took me 7 years to get this title, you know, constantly training, sacrificing, all the sacrificing, everything I did, knowing full well that kickboxing wasn't gonna make me any money. It was just a personal endeavor, you know. And I thought that when I was done fighting, that I would just resume to real estate, because I was a real estate agent when I started the journey to kickboxing. I quit my real estate to become a kickboxer. That makes no sense whatsoever. But anyways, regardless, you know, the feeling I got winning that title was incredible. It's like, you know, you get like Arnold Schwarzenegger had made a comment about when he gets that special pump, that feeling, that there's no feeling like that when for the weights, you know, they would get to that, you know, adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know what it's like in weightlifting, because I never got into weightlifting, but I know what it's like in kickboxing. And I'm telling you, it's like I was on top of the world. It's unbelievable. You know, the feeling that you're just so energized. It's like you feel like you can just walk through anything. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's just the best feeling I've ever had. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people that fight have a hard time giving it up, because they miss that endorphin high.
I could see that. So here's an interesting one. It says, can you share your experience training with Frank Shamrock before he became champion? What was that like? I mean, that was the beginning of MMA, and like,
well,
you're the kickboxer, he's the grappler. You know?
Yeah, training with Frank Shamrock. He came to me in 1996 or 7. I don't remember which one. It was
It says
96 or
97. 97 is what it says.
97. Yeah, he came to me in 1997. He didn't come to train with me. He didn't come to train with me. He just came to my gym because he wanted a place to train. And I asked him if he needed any help. You know, he didn't ask me. I asked him, and he goes, "Ah, sure, yeah, you want to help me? No problem." So I started helping him. I becoming his coach, and he didn't know how to strike. His striking was not right. He didn't even wear hand wraps. He didn't even know how to wear hand wraps. He didn't know how to wrap. He didn't know anything. He really didn't understand the striking. He knew how to strike, but he didn't understand it. And basically, so I started working with him on that and working with him on other issues like mental strength. He already had mental strength because that guy was incredible, but I work with him on other avenues regarding that. You know, like when he won the title, you know, I told him, now that you won the title, now the real work's coming. And he's looking at me like, what do you mean the real work's coming? You know, it's like, I thought I just won the world title. I won the UFC champion. Now you're saying the real work's coming? I go, yeah, because now everybody knows what you're all about. So now you got to up your game. So you got to keep training harder. So it was one of those situations where he was a genius and predicting how he would end fights. He told me with Tito Ortiz, his game plan was to get Tito tired if he couldn't submit him at the very beginning, and that's exactly what he did. I mean, his win against Kevin Jackson, the Olympic gold medalist, was to let him take him down. And when he took him down, he's going to plant on all fours and he was going to arm bar him because that's what wrestlers do. This is exactly what happened. He was a genius in that regard. I mean, he needed me for sure, but he also had a great lot of ideas already in his arsenal. So it was kind of like one of those benefits that we both benefited. You know, he did, I did. You know, without me, I don't think he would have made it what he did, and without him, I don't think I would have been where I was at either, because that gave me a big head start into the coaching because of coaching him. It allowed me to train other great fighters like BJ Penn that came right after, and I mean, the list goes on and on. But it's Frank Shamrock that basically started that. So training with him was it wasn't me giving him everything. It was him giving me too. We both learned from each other, and I couldn't be where I'm at without him. And honestly speaking, he couldn't be where he's at without me either.
This is another question leads into that, and I'm just going to ask like a couple more questions, and we're going to be done for the day. But how successful was the partnership? How did that partnership with Frank Shamrock influence other fighters to join AKA? Did other fighters see him and go, "Ooh, that looks like the place to go"? Did that have any influence on that situation?
No, not really, because it was Frank Shamrock Academy. So it did for Frank, not for me. AKA became AKA after Frank was no longer really involved. But it was Frank Shamrock Submission Academy, and it was his fighters originally that we took over. They weren't necessarily my fighters per se. They were Frank's fighters.
Okay. Can you share your experience of coaching BJ Penn and his journey to becoming champion in both lightweight and welterweight divisions? Like, what point did he go off on his own? Like, was he gone by welterweight, or I don't even remember the story.
No, he didn't. No, he was only with me until he lost to Jens Pulver for the first time when he went for the lightweight title. So I can't share that experience because I wasn't part of that.
Okay. And how did it feel to become the only trainer to have 3 concurrent UFC champions at one time?
I didn't really think much of it because my goal is I'm always looking out for what's the next one. So I don't really, at that particular time, I didn't really put much thought into it. My thought was, okay, who's next? And Khabib was next. So my attitude was get Khabib ready to win the title, and try to get the other guys to retain their titles. So that was my main goal, not having 3 guys. And I don't realize it until it's already done. And that's my mentality. It's still the same way now. I'm thinking, not what I've done with Islam with everybody else, because it's not just me with Islam. We have a whole team, right? But I'm thinking about who we gonna get next. Well, Umar. I want Umar next. We have Usman. He already became the champ, and I want Umar. So my focus is on Umar. My mind and thought is, okay, we got to get Umar to the title. So that's the way I work. I don't think about what I've done or who I've done with good. I think about who I need to help next.
Here's one. What is your coaching philosophy at AKA? I don't think I've ever asked that one. It's a good one.
Basically, coaching philosophy is just like that in the military. You got the general, you got the colonels, you got you got the anarchy, high, low, 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 and then you keep it at that particular
The high,
level.
you meant to say the hierarchy. Anarchy is another word.
Yeah, hierarchy, yeah, and you're not on hierarchy because sorry for the yeah, it's important to keep order, and how you keep order is nobody's special. Nobody's special. Everybody's special. So if you make one person special, and like say Habib, if you made Habib the king and everybody is below him, that's never good. So it was always, no matter who was there, the person that was there before you, if he had a higher time there and he had a higher credentials than you, he would be the guy. And we always talk in order. We have team meetings at the end, and it's never everybody can talk whenever. No, it's you get your chance, you get your chance, you get your chance. And people that go on the wall, our wall, they would be just anybody can go on the wall. It would be a TV fighter, and individuals that come that are brand new, they all had to clean. If they weren't high level people, they weren't necessarily on the wall or anything like that. They'd clean. They'd be the ones cleaning the gym. So we kept that kind of order always. So it's kind of like a military way, and it's sort of, but not really, but similar.
Totally see that. I guess this is a similar question. Like, how do you manage to maintain the high standards at AKA, basically based on what you said?
I just said it. Yeah.
Well, this has been a good thing. There's one last question. We'll ask this one. How do you see the future of MMA and AKA at this point in your career and your life?
I see the future AKA and MMA fantastic. I have individuals that are really stepping up to the plate while I'm here in Dubai. I have Ron Kessler, my head coach, for everybody. I got Cain Velasquez taking over my role, and I have my son Jeremy Mendez coming on to do his thing. Sean Bunch for the wrestling is incredible, and I got Clint Cornell who handles the amateurs. So I have a lot of good guys. Tomas Diagni, former world Sancho champion, former MMA champion. He's also there helping. We have a lot. We have a lot. Jeff Carvalho, Pop's son. I have a lot of good coaches there that they're keeping up the standard. And it's just going to continue. It's not. We're not going lower. We're gonna go up with everybody. So as time goes, people know more AKA fighters because there's some few of them on the rise.
That's pretty cool, Hub. So what's it like when you come back and you're like, "Ooh, look what they've done since I left"? Do you see the improvements usually when you come home?
Yes, when I come back, I see the improvement. I see the guys that have gotten better, and it's really shows in the quality of what we have. That you can grab somebody from scratch and you can bring them to world-class level.
That's awesome, Hav. Well, how much longer are you left in Dubai before you come back?
Probably January. I'm here for about another probably 40, 50 days.
Okie doke. Well, we'll be doing another podcast soon. Have a happy Thanksgiving, wherever you find Thanksgiving food over there. And, we will be catching up with you soon.
All right, man.